Falling Down is one of the most fascinatingly multi-layered films I've ever had the pleasure of watching. It's loaded with symbolism and deeper themes, from the obvious, like the blatant social commentary on societal decadence, to the slightly more subtle, like the dichotomy between Detective Pendergast and our hero, Defense. To me, the most fascinating layer in this amazing film is the perfectionist idealist hero who finds himself lost from the tales of knights, history, and fairy tales and thrown to our industrialized, careless, and overwhelming society, far from the tales of chivalry. To understand this theme in the film, you need to understand the rest of it. Much in the discussion of the film, I find people commenting that Defense is just a normal guy pushed to his limit, or that it was just one bad day separating him from doing what he did. But I disagree. I think that the entire idea of the film is that Defense has always been a ticking time bomb. He's estranged from his wife and daughter, and we're told it's because of his anger issues, but we can look deeper than this just being an anger issue, and more to the truth and core of this film. The issue that's driven our character from the moment he started his car earlier that morning before the movie even started, to the moment he proposes a duel between him and the sheriff. Defense is a very moral character. In this, I don't mean his actions are objectively moral, I rather find them objectionable. But what I mean is, he has a very strict moral code that he wants to live by, and worse yet, wants to see the world adhere to. He is angered by the overpriced items at the inner city grocery store. He is livid at the Whammy Burger not serving him ready-made breakfast for arriving a few minutes later than 11:30, because of a stupid company policy. He believes in defending and protecting his country and has spent a lifetime doing what he can best to defend it, building missiles. But this also affects his personal life and interpersonal relationships. When he buys his daughter a horse, he doesn't understand the nuance of the mind of a little girl. He thinks that because he bought it, she should play on it. When his wife is upset, he wants to calm her down. He wants to take her to the pier because the pier is where she's happy. And if she's unhappy, they should go to the pier. This simplistic worldview of how things ought to be has driven a wedge between him and everyone else. And when he loses his job, he can't compromise and find a job elsewhere because he should be building missiles and defending America. This is all beautifully illustrated in allegory during the burger scene. When he finally gets his burger, he comments how the picture of the burger, the same picture that got him to want to buy the burger in the very first place, is a nice, juicy, plum, and beautiful burger, while the real burger he was served is a squashed and miserable thing, which is not just his view on the burger, but on the entire world. They lied to him. And this worldview is beautifully contrasted by the detective, who doesn't seem to mind where things come from or how, but takes them as they are, never standing up for what he really thinks things should be, but accepting the world for being as flawed as it is. He's a little happier for it, but is also walked over all during the film by his peers and boss until the scene where they finally confront each other. Defense is finally faced with the reality that he's the bad guy, that he lives in an imperfect world. In any other time, he would have been the moral hero of his people, his tribe, the order keeper, the protector who makes sure everything runs perfectly in his vision of what everyone should be doing. But the world has grown too big, too complex, and too cynical for guys like him. It's dirty and filthy and far from ideal, but it won't stop moving for anybody anymore. By fighting against the perceived injustices he faces, by fighting against stupid corporate rules about when the breakfast and lunch menus should be available, by fighting against overpriced groceries, by fighting against bad city budgeting, rich assholes keeping many acres of beautiful Greenland for their stupid golf games, the plastic surgeon getting all the spoils while hard-working defenders of the nation, such as himself, barely get by on scraps, he was fighting not just the corruptions and evils of this world that I just mentioned, but the world itself. To illustrate this point further, you can look at the single-minded determination he has to go see his daughter on her birthday. He believes that on his daughter's birthday he should be able to go see her, to buy her a gift, and to spend a lovely day with her, despite the reality that is facing him, that his wife has divorced him, and that she never wants to see him again. He is fighting for the ideal of what should be happiness, without acknowledging how that reality has changed beyond being attainable. And instead of adapting to this change, he keeps fighting to uphold the old ideal. We know he loves his wife. We know well that he loves his daughter, and his coming actions near the end of the movie illustrate this beyond any reasonable doubt. Even as they run away from him, he screams for his wife, but she doesn't come back. They fear him, and he finally realizes this when the detective tells him they all think he was going to kill those who he loves beyond anything else in the world. Defense stands in front of a beautiful backdrop of the LAC. Unfortunately, as the detective has pointed out, it's become polluted and unswimmable. It appears beautiful, but deep inside, it's rotting. While the detective stands before a filthy, vandalized, rundown pier that represents the visual reality of what they live. And in the beginning of their confrontation, it appears that despite being faced by his position as the bad guy, Defense never really stops believing that things should go a certain way. It appears that he believes that he and the sheriff should have a draw at sundown, that it's perfect, it's beautiful. But the detective, still being grounded in reality, completely rejects this proposal, trying to talk him out of it. Defense appears to want things to end in his own perfectly imagined way, retorting, "You can kill me, or I can kill you," then elaborating that, by his own death, his daughter would get his insurance money. It appears he wants to do one last good and selfless act for his family before he leaves. This idealism runs deeper, as when he's told he can still see her grow up, he retorts that seeing her behind bars is not good enough for him. It appears that it will be selfish and he wants to protect her. This view that he's still the die-hard idealist that he once was is shattered, though, once it is revealed that the gun he was threatening the detective with was a water pistol all along. And with a smirk, after spraying the detective with some water, he tells him, "I would have got you." To me, this signifies the real death of the idealist inside Defense, betraying his own ideal of what would be beautiful and perfect, a showdown between a sheriff and a bad guy at sunset, by corrupting it and intentionally refusing to play the part of the bad guy. The detective, stunned by this, stunned by the fact that he got even sprayed, can't help but feel sympathy for Defense. And by the end of the film, we see that this idealist was a really good person who cared and loved his family. We see this in the old family, in the old family tapes where he's actually being nice with his daughter, being nice with his wife. They're smiling, they're happy. And that inside the detective, the realist who also loves his family, has now a little streak of idealism that he learned from Defense. This is my quick analysis of Falling Down. I hope you enjoyed it. For some rapid-fire thoughts, this idealism that runs inside Defense is somewhat necessary for us in our everyday lives, but it can quickly become antiquated and it can quickly become a source of isolation. So while it is good to have ideals, to have morals that you would die and, fight hard for, it is at the end best to compromise. In the end, it is best to accept things as they are. A lot of us, me included, would have this idea that, I'm going to fight the entire world. I'm going to fight the injustices that I see, that I experience, that I live, and I'm going to spend my whole life doing it. But at the end of the day, it's one of those realities we're going to have to face. We're going to have to face our incompetent leaders. We're going to have to face, economic inflation. We're going to have to face moral degradation. Not even moral degradation. At this point, we're going to have to face so much, and we're going to have to learn how to deal with it. Not necessarily fight it or, not fight it. Not necessarily be indifferent or, get swept away by the waves. But there's a happy middle ground that we all should maybe take. If you find yourself a little, too much like the detective, maybe take a line out of Defense's book, and if you find yourself estranged and fighting with everybody else, just take a line out of Pendergast's book. It's this dichotomy between us that we should all be facing. It's this game of balance. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick video. I just put it together because this is an idea that I find rarely explored in Falling Down, and I think it is present all throughout the movie, and I would like to see more discussion about it and to see it acknowledged more. Thank you and have a great day.